Hello everyone. In this video, we'll look at what is an EC2 instance, as well as what are the different ways of procuring or purchasing a EC2 instance. So first of all, let's understand what an EC2 instance is. It is basically a virtual machine or a virtual server running in AWS cloud. You can install your applications onto these virtual instances or virtual machines. And with EC2, you can spin up starting from you can spin up as many virtual machines you need. It provides you resizable compute capacity. uh, it reduces the time for you to procure servers, because within few clicks of mouse you can spin up your instances. Each virtual machine obviously has a CPU, RAM, a certain set of storage attached to it, as well as a network that is available. So within AWS, there are different instance types and sizes available. So when I say different instance types, it really means is that AWS has optimized the instances for particular use cases. For example, if I'm trying to run a web server, I want to pick up a specific instance type that is made for that particular kind of a workload, versus running your databases. I want to get an instance that is more maybe memory optimized or compute optimized, depending upon what type of database I have. So apart from that, there is also what is called various different sizes, or basically, I want to call that maybe as different t-shirt sizes are available for each family type, which means that there is a small instance available, there's a large, there's extra large, there's extra extra large. So all those are different sizes. A small might have one CPU, 1 gig of memory, whereas a large might have 4 CPUs, 16 gigs of memory, and a extra extra large might have 32 CPUs and 64 gigs of memory. So depending upon all those t-shirt sizes, you can pick from those t-shirt sizes of instances, you can pick the right that meets your criteria, that fits your application needs. So now with EC2 instance, there are different purchasing options that you need to understand, and these becomes key as you go into your certification exam, because you will see a couple of different types of scenarios where they would try to test your understanding about the different purchasing models that is available. So with EC2, what you have is the first is really called the on-demand, which really means what it says, that you're just paying by an hour. I'm using a virtual machine. I deployed a Linux or a Windows virtual machine for 2 hours, and per hour I'm paying, let's say 50 cents. So within 2 hours I paid $1, I shut it down, I terminate my instance, that's done, that's it. So my monthly bill is going to be about $1 for that particular instance. So that's what really on demand is. Now the use case is more like a dev and test kind of environment, or you're really just playing with a few of the options with the EC2. So you don't really need this is not a consistent workload. It's more like a test and dev or a QA environment where you deployed few instances and you are going to terminate those at the end of your project. So that's what really on demand is, right? Now, apart from on demand, what you have, there is something called available, is called reserved instances. So now think about a scenario where you have a consistent workload. Now this is your production application that is sitting on-prem, and you're now migrating it to AWS. So AWS offers you a option where if you want to reserve, or if you basically go ahead and reserve that capacity, let's say it is, let's just make up the number that you need 10 instances for that particular application. And because it's a production app, you will use it 24/7, 365, and you can then purchase that particular model using the reserved instances. You will have a cost savings of about 60%, 70%, or so on, right? So you can purchase the reserved instances at a significant discount. The whole idea is, again, that these instances would run all the time. Now, whether the instance is running or you have shut it down, you're still paying for it. Whereas with on-demand, if you shut down the instance, you're not paying for it. With the reserved, it's a committed capacity. You are committing up for a certain instances, and you're going to pay for that. Now, your commitment period could be 1 year term or a 3 year term, right? Depending upon how you want to purchase that. Now, there are different options AWS has come up in the recent years. One of them is called the standard reserved. Now, what that is used to be, so previously this was the only option that was available. It's more like I purchased one particular type of an instance from under the reserved category, and then you get locked into that particular family of your reserved instance. So for example, as I will explain later in the video, that there is a, you went for a let's say C family of instances, and after some time you realize that this was not the right family type and you want to switch to a different family type with reserved instances, you were not able to do so, right? If you spin up a different family type, you will start paying it as an on-demand instance, but with a standard, you are still kind of locked into that. So you need to make sure that you're picking the right instance type when you are purchasing the reserved instances. Whereas with convertible reserved instance, you pay a little bit more, but now you have the flexibility to switch from one family type to another, right? So that's what the convertible are. But you're still paying much less than what you would have been paying for on-demand for 1 year, for 24/7, 365. For on-demand instance, you would certainly pay a lot more versus the reserve. Now that's where the thing comes is that you are committing for a term, right? Now, the scheduled instance or the scheduled reserved instance is really what is written here at the bottom, is where, I want to get some discount, but I don't need the instances to be available 24/7. I only use it, let's say, only for 3 days in a week for 1 year. Every week I only need it for 3 days because those 3 days my application does some, let's say, processing of some data, and it starts it on a Friday evening and it goes till Monday morning. So I only need those instances for that particular window. So scheduled instances are exactly those where you are still going to get discounted price, but you're committing for 1 year term, but you are defining a particular window per week or so that you will use that this capacity of instances or the compute would be available to you, and you're paying for that particular time period, right? So that is what the scheduled reserved instances are. Now, apart from that, there is also something called available as spot instances. Now, as the name says, spot, it's really, you're bidding on the unused instance capacity. So what happens is that AWS has, multiple data centers across the world, multiple regions, multiple availability zones, and they have a lot of unused capacity that is sitting there in their data centers, right? So what they do is they allow different people to, or different organizations to bid on the unused capacity. So probably, let's say for an on-demand instance, you might have paid, let's say, I'm just kind of making up the number, let's say the price is $1 per hour. So AWS would set the bidding as 20 cents per hour. So then you will bid and you would come and say that, okay, I'll pay 25 cents an hour and I'll take like 100 instances, 1,000 instances, right? So you are saving a lot more with the spot instances, but there is a caveat with that AWS can pull that capacity as if someone comes and pays more for those instances, or AWS needs that capacity for other purposes, like for on-demand. There's a lot more traffic coming in for on-demand. That capacity would be pulled from your application. So that's where you need to make sure that your application can handle that particular kind of a behavior where suddenly you would lose 100 instances, but your application can still function. So one of the combinations would be that you have some on-demand instances running or reserved instances running, and you add a fleet of spot instances to your application. So one of the most popular use cases has been for spot instances is with many of those research pharmaceutical organizations, where they deploy like thousands of instances, spot instances, at really a fraction of cost, and do a lot of analytical processing and save huge amount of cost with the spot instances, right? So that's where really all these different types kind of drive from, depending upon what your use case is. All right, now going into the next option, which is dedicated host and dedicated instances. So let me kind of now explain both of these, what these are. So till now, what we saw or what we understood is about the on-demand or the reserved or the spot or the scheduled reserved instance. So all these are really a multi-tenant environment, right? The underlying hardware is shared among many different organizations or tenants, really, right? You still don't have visibility to someone else's environment, but it's a multi-tenant deployment. Whereas, as the name says here, dedicated means it's these hosts or these instances are dedicated to you. That is, means this is a single tenancy model. So obviously you're going to pay at a higher price for both of these options, but now these instances or these servers are dedicated to you. So with dedicated host, you actually pay for a physical host that is fully dedicated for your environment. And really the use case is that you have either, it could be a compliance requirement, or it could be a software license requirement where you need to have the license deployed based on a per socket per core kind of a scenario. So that's where the dedicated host thing comes up. And dedicated instance is, again, Your instances are running on a single tenant hardware, as I was saying earlier. So both of these options are kind of similar. Let's understand what the differences are between these two options. All right, so both can be used to launch the EC2 instances onto the physical server that is dedicated for your use. Sorry, so this is key to understand, right? The hardware is, the physical servers are dedicated for your use. There is no performance, security, or physical difference between both of these options. But the biggest difference is here. The dedicated host gives you the ability or that additional visibility to control how your instances are placed on a physical server. So what that really means is that with dedicated host, let's say I pick 3 different hosts. I have 3 dedicated hosts I'm paying for. Now I can say which particular VM, or rather EC2 instance, is going to be deployed on which particular host. With dedicated host, that is the additional visibility I get. If it is a dedicated instance, the host is still dedicated to you, but AWS would run their algorithm to place instances the way they see the best use of the resources. Whereas with dedicated host, I get to choose on which particular host my instance sits.